Something small happened on a quiet morning, and at first I almost missed it. I was standing by my window, holding a cup of warm tea, watching the sky slowly wake up. The sun was not bright yet. It was gentle, like it did not want to disturb anyone. The street outside was calm. No cars, no voices, just the sound of birds calling to each other. It felt like an ordinary day, the kind of day that slips past without leaving a mark. I remember thinking, nothing special will happen today. That was when something small happened. A tiny brown sparrow landed on the edge of my window. It was so close that I could see its small chest moving up and down as it breathed. Its feathers were a little messy, like it had rushed through the morning. It tilted its head and looked straight at me, as if it was not afraid at all. I froze. I did not want to scare it away. I stood there, holding my tea, afraid even to blink. For a few seconds, the world felt very still. It was just me and that small bird, sharing the same quiet moment. The sparrow chirped softly, not loud, not proud, just a small sound, almost like a whisper. Then it flew away. That was it. That was the small thing that happened. But even after the bird was gone, I could not move. I stood there, staring at the empty window ledge. My tea had gone cold, but I did not care. My heart felt warm in a strange way, like something inside me had gently tapped and said, "Pay attention." I sat down and thought about that sparrow. Why did such a small moment stay with me? It was just a bird. It did not bring news. It did not leave a message. It did not change the world. Or did it? I realized how rushed my life had been lately. I moved from one task to another, always thinking about what came next. I rarely stopped, rarely looked, rarely listened. But that tiny sparrow had stopped me without trying. It had reminded me that life is made of small moments, not only big events. Later that day, I went out for a walk. I noticed things I usually ignored. The way the leaves danced when the wind passed through them. The smile of a child holding a balloon. The sound of my own footsteps on the road. Everything felt clearer, as if my eyes had learned how to see again. All because of something small. That night, before I went to sleep, I wrote in my notebook. I wrote about the sparrow. I wrote about the quiet morning. I wrote about how something small can open a door inside your heart if you let it. I did not know it yet, but that small moment was only the beginning. Something small had happened, yes, but it was about to lead me somewhere I never expected. The next day, I woke up thinking about the sparrow. It surprised me how a moment so small could follow me into a new morning. As I brushed my teeth, as I tied my shoes, as I stepped outside, the image of that tiny bird stayed with me. It felt like a quiet reminder walking beside me, asking me to slow down. On my way to the market, something small happened again. I was waiting to cross the road when I noticed an old woman standing a few steps away. She was holding two heavy bags, her hands slightly shaking. Cars passed by quickly, and she did not move. Her eyes looked unsure, like she was calculating the right moment but could not find it. Normally, I might have looked at my phone. Normally, I might have crossed the road and gone on with my day. But that morning, I remembered the sparrow. I remembered how stopping had changed the way I felt. So I stepped closer and asked, "Do you want help crossing?" She looked at me, surprised. Then she smiled. It was a slow smile, tired but kind. She nodded. We crossed the road together. I carried one of her bags. It was heavier than it looked, filled with vegetables and rice. We walked slowly, matching her pace. She told me she was going home to cook lunch for her grandchildren. Her voice was soft, but there was pride in it. When we reached the other side, she thanked me again and again, as if I had done something big. But I had not. I had only stopped. As I walked away, I felt something warm spread through my chest. It was the same feeling I had after the sparrow flew away. Quiet, gentle, real. I realized then that small moments do not shout. They do not demand attention. They simply wait for us to notice them. At the market, I found myself smiling more. I greeted the seller by name. I waited patiently in line. I listened when someone spoke. It felt like I was moving through the same world, but seeing it through clearer eyes. Later, while resting on a bench, I asked myself why these small moments mattered so much. Maybe it was because they made me feel connected, not to big dreams or distant goals, but to the present moment, to the people around me, to myself. That evening, I sat by my window again. I hoped the sparrow would return, but it did not. Instead, I watched the sky change colors as the sun went down. Orange turned into pink, and pink slowly faded into blue. It was beautiful, but only if you stayed long enough to see it. I understood something then. Something small is not small because it lacks meaning. It is small because it asks for attention, not applause. And when you give it that attention, it changes you in ways you do not expect. I closed my notebook after writing that thought, feeling calm. I did not know what would happen next. But I had a feeling. This journey of small moments was far from over. A few days passed, and life tried to pull me back into its usual rush. Messages came in, responsibilities waited, time felt tight again. I could feel myself slipping into old habits, walking faster, listening less, thinking too much about what was next instead of what was now. I wondered if those small moments were already fading, turning into just another nice memory. Then something small happened again. It was raining that afternoon. Not heavy rain, just a soft drizzle that blurred the world a little. I stopped by a small cafe to wait it out. The place was quiet, almost empty, with gentle music playing in the background. I ordered a drink and sat near the corner, watching rain slide down the glass window. Across from me sat a young boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with his school bag on the floor. He was alone, swinging his legs slowly. His eyes kept moving from the door to the clock on the wall. He looked worried, like he was waiting for someone who was late. After a while, his lower lip began to tremble. He tried to be brave, but tears still slipped out. Silently, he wiped his face with his sleeve. I hesitated. Should I say something? Should I mind my own business? Then I remembered how close the sparrow had come to my window, how the old woman had smiled when I offered help. Small moments did not ask for permission. They only asked for courage. I leaned slightly toward him and asked gently, "Are you okay?" He shook his head. His voice was small, just like his body. He told me his mother had gone to buy something nearby and asked him to wait, but she was taking too long. The rain scared him. He thought she might not come back. I smiled softly and said, "She will. Sometimes rain just slows people down." We sat there together. I did not lecture him. I did not distract him with big promises. I simply stayed. I talked about the rain, about how it makes the world smell fresh. I asked him about school, about his favorite subject. Slowly, his shoulders relaxed. Then the door opened. A woman rushed in, her clothes slightly wet, her face full of worry. The moment she saw her son, her eyes filled with relief. He jumped up and ran to her. She held him tightly, thanking me with her eyes before her words came. I watched them leave hand in hand. Something inside me shifted again. I realized that being present was powerful. Not loudly powerful, quietly powerful. The kind of power that does not change headlines but changes hearts. That night, I thought about how many times I had needed someone to simply stay. Not fix things, not explain everything, just stay. And how many times I had rushed past someone else who needed the same. Something small had happened in that cafe. No one applauded, no one noticed, but it mattered. I went to sleep that night feeling lighter, as if my heart had learned a new language, one spoken in small moments, gentle choices, and simple presence. I began to trust small moments, not in a loud, hopeful way, but in a quiet, steady way. Like trusting the sun to rise without checking the clock. I no longer searched for something big to happen. I simply stayed open, allowing the day to unfold as it wished. One evening, after a long and tiring day, I took a different route home. It was a narrow path behind a row of old houses, a path I usually avoided because it felt too silent, too forgotten. The streetlights flickered, casting soft shadows on the ground, and my footsteps echoed softly against the concrete. That was when something small happened. I heard a sound, soft, uneven, and full of sadness. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but the sound came again, fragile and trembling. I followed it toward a corner near a broken fence and saw a small kitten curled up beside a damp cardboard box. Its fur was dirty, its body thin, and one of its eyes was half closed. It looked cold. It looked tired. Most of all, it looked alone. I stood there unsure of what to do. I was exhausted. My mind was full. I had plans waiting for me at home. A part of me whispered, "Someone else will help." Another part of me stayed silent, staring at the kitten's weak little body. Then the kitten looked up at me. It did not run. It did not hiss. It simply meowed, a small broken sound that went straight to my heart. I slowly crouched down. "Hey," I whispered, afraid that loudness might scare it away. The kitten did not move, but its eyes stayed on mine. There was fear in them, yes, but there was also trust. And that trust felt heavy in my hands. I took off my jacket and gently wrapped it around the kitten. Almost immediately, its shaking slowed. I picked it up carefully, holding it close to my chest. It was lighter than I expected, like it had been carrying too little of the world for too long. I brought it home. I cleaned it, dried it, and found some food. The kitten ate quietly, as if it was afraid the meal might disappear if it ate too fast. When it finished, it curled up on an old towel and fell asleep. I sat beside it for a long time. I realized how often we wait for the perfect moment to be kind. The perfect time. The perfect energy. The perfect situation. But kindness does not wait. It arrives quietly and asks, "Will you choose me now?" That night, watching the kitten sleep, I understood something important. Saving the kitten would not change the world. It would not solve every problem. But for that small life, everything had changed. And somehow, for me, everything had changed too. Something small had happened, and my heart had opened wider because of it. Morning arrived softly, as if it did not want to disturb the peace that had settled in my home. I opened my eyes and felt a small weight near my side. The kitten was there, curled up close, warm and calm. Its gentle breathing matched mine, and for a moment, I stayed still, letting the silence speak. I had not planned for this new life beside me, yet it felt right, as if it had always been meant to be here. Something small had happened, and it had stayed. The days that followed were simple, but they felt full. The kitten grew stronger, more playful, more curious. It followed me everywhere, turning ordinary moments into something brighter. When I worked, it slept near my feet. When I rested, it climbed into my lap. It reminded me again and again that presence is a gift. One afternoon, I sat by the same window where everything had begun. The sunlight poured in gently, just like that first morning. I held my notebook and read through the words I had written over the past days. The sparrow, the old woman, the boy in the cafe, the kitten. Each story was small on its own, but together, they formed something meaningful. They formed me. I realized I was no longer rushing through life. I noticed faces. I noticed sounds. I noticed feelings, both mine and others. I had learned that kindness does not need permission, and attention does not need effort. All it needs is a willing heart. That evening, as the sky turned soft shades of gold and blue, I stepped outside for a short walk. A sparrow hopped near my feet, fearless and free. I smiled, feeling a quiet gratitude rise inside me. It was not the same bird, but it carried the same message. life speaks softly. We just have to listen. I returned home, and the kitten greeted me at the door, tail lifted high. I picked it up, holding it close, feeling its small heartbeat against my chest. In that moment, I understood something clearly, something I would carry with me always. Big changes do not always arrive with noise. Sometimes they come quietly, wrapped in small moments, gentle choices, and simple acts of care. I opened my notebook one last time and wrote, "Something small happened, I noticed, I chose, and everything changed." I closed the book, turned off the light, and smiled. This was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a better way to live,